On this episode of Bootstrappers, we're going to speak with Deb Newell about when it's time to get a consultant and how they can help you improve your business. That's next.
Welcome to Bootstrappers, a unique program designed to help make your business better. From property management to remote workers, Bootstrappers is here to help your business succeed. Bootstrappers is a production of Anequim LLC, so let's lace up those business boots and join Bootstrappers with Jeremy and Gwen Aspen.
Welcome to Bootstrappers, where we talk about topics that are important to real estate and property management entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Gwen Aspen, and today we have a really exciting topic. We're going to talk about when it's time to solicit the help of a consultant. We're going to speak with Deb Newell, who is the winner of Consultant of the Year here at the Property Management Mastermind Conference that we're in Dallas today. So we're going to talk to her. She is the owner and CEO of Real-Time Consulting Services, and just get her take on everything. So Bootstrappers is powered by Anequim. Anequim helps property management companies become more profitable through virtual assistants, 24-hour call center for leasing, maintenance, and call overflow for rent manager clients, and for back office support. If you are a fan of the show, please like, subscribe, tell all your friends, and leave us a nice note on the description of our YouTube page, or see us on Instagram at Bootstrappers Show and leave us a message in the bio, and you can participate in our book giveaway. With that, I'd like to introduce Deb Newell. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Gwen. Thank you.
I'm so happy to speak with Consultant of the Year. No, but it really is an honor, and you are known for being somebody that if you're serious about your business and things aren't going well, just call Deb. I mean, You know that's your reputation in the industry.
Yeah.
So what is the main reason people give you a ring?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think they are at a point where they've either plateaued and they just don't know what to do anymore. They can't grow. They don't know which direction to go to. Their team is exhausting them in some way, or telling them that they're overwhelmed. There's a myriad of reasons, really. But I think that they come to me at the point of kind of like, I'm where do I go? I'm kind of done, or I'm stuck.
So is it
Probably
like an emotional flashpoint? Is there usually like a instigating moment?
I think for most, yes, there is. It's something that has triggered them to to call, and I think it could be anything from their employees coming to them, like I said, and just saying I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna, if you don't fix this,
quit.
Yeah, if you don't fix this, I'm probably gonna leave. Or there's a financial issue behind it. A lot of times that's it. I think there's a couple main points for them. It's usually growth, right? They want to grow. I don't know how to grow, and I'm stuck, and I have a team either I like or I don't like, and I need, I don't know what they're doing. And that could be one of it. And then financially, it could be, I thought I had all this money. I don't know where this is going, and I have an issue there.
Okay, so you come in, they hire you, you come in, and then what do you look into to see where the company is sick?
I think I look at everything. So that's where I think people, they come to me and they're like, this is what's wrong with my business. And I'm knowing that that's the symptom that they're seeing, but I know that there's a root cause to whatever's going on. So I have to dig deeper. So we'll talk. I'll kind of hear their point of view, what's going on, kind of gather a whole bunch of information aside from that, look through a lot of it. I'm looking at, there's really three fundamental things I look at. There are people, process, and technology, because I think it's those three foundational things that actually drive the business into whatever the ground or to move forward.
So if it's a people problem, those are the most touchy, right? Those are
Sure.
Are those the ones where people have the most lack of clarity? Or
Yes. So part of my process is that I go in and I'll meet with the employees, because I think that's really essential. So, the owner of the company is not around. I'm doing this one-on-one with the employee. I feel like I have a really good ability to kind of talk to people, because I know the industry so well, ask them specific questions, not demeaning into what they're doing. Just, I'm genuinely curious. Tell me how you do your application process. So I'm not going to tell them it's wrong. I might ask why they do it a certain way. Tell me why you did it that way. Oh, that's just the way we've always done it. But that helps me kind of understand that pattern of what's going on in the company. So if I hear that a lot, for example, oh, that's how we've always done it, then that,
that tells you about the culture.
a little bit, yeah. And it tells me that most likely the other reason they're, oh, I was never really trained. I just kind of got through into this, or they just gave me this additional job in addition to what I was already doing.
So you check in with the people, and then for processes. I mean, processes are just so hard for everybody in our industry.
Right.
I mean, if someone's just overwhelmed with the processes and doesn't even know where to start, what is your recommendation for them?
So the first thing is just kind of build out the foundation of the whole life cycle of property management. Let's just start at the beginning, because I think you're right. People do get overwhelmed, and it is very overwhelming. And there's so many different ways to do one thing.
And the technology, like even just be like, oh, should I be on Zapier? Should I get Lead Simple? Or?
But I don't think that's for everyone. So I need to kind of diagnose the company. You're right, like the culture of the company. The people are important, because if they don't adopt anything else beyond that, then it's just not going to work.
And you look at the leadership and what they're capable of, how much they like technology, what they're...
Yeah, usually the owners are always the one who wants... That's why they call, right? They're like, I want to change. This needs to change. I need to have it fixed. But part of the process is if your employees aren't going to change, it doesn't matter what I do. So it may come down to I'm looking at the employees and right seat, right
Well,
bus,
and then
wrong
if
bus.
people don't want to use processes, it's an indication, and the owner is willing to make a change and wants to be process focused.
Right.
Likely you just don't have the right people, right?
That could be part of it. It could also be he or she needs to change their style of leadership a little bit. So I've run into owners who are just like, this is how they've started and they haven't changed at all. Some may never change, but I think if they can be coachable on how to make small changes that could impact how they actually lead the company.
So that's probably a huge thing that you run into, is having to coach people on the leadership side, because the leadership that's necessary at 100 units is maybe different than at 700 units. And I think when there are problems with your leadership style or the way that you hold people accountable, when you get bigger, those get magnified, don't they? And they intensify. Those leadership issues aren't just some small problem. They become giant problems.
Right. And I think it's a delicate balance, because, I'm coming in and I'm telling them that, you kind of suck at your job. But I don't think that people go into this industry or this business, this entrepreneurial idea that they've had, thinking that someday they're going to manage even just 5 people. So it's kind of a learning process. And so, they get to a point where they realize, I can't do all of this anymore, so I'm going to hire somebody. You hire your first employee, you tend to be too close to that employee, right? Mm-hmm. And so then there's an emotional attachment because they were with you, quote, from the beginning. And then it kind of builds from there. And unfortunately, then they're too close to the problem. So they can't take a step back. They can't separate the role from the individual. And then that's where I come in. I usually say, let's take everybody out of the picture and let's look at your roles and the functions, and let's dive into that process. And then let's bring people back and fit them in. Because I want to say, if you could start all over again, what would the roles be where you're at today, and where do you want to go, and what would those roles look like? Then you have to bring the people in and see, are they going to fit that role?
So that's so interesting. So you do start with the org chart oftentimes.
Oh, I do. Yeah. Yes.
So I don't think people realize that that's where you start. I mean, I had hired a consultant this year as well, and he went straight to the org chart first. So I think if people are diagnosing their own company problems and maybe they're not ready for a consultant yet, they can start with the org chart first and make sure that they're... What recommendations do you have for each role that those need to have for each
So I think you have
position
to
as
look
they're
at the
thinking about it?
roles, look at the company. Door count is going to matter. So look at the company, how many doors you have, what's your goal. So you have to look at your 3 to 5 year plan And that could mean you could be exiting in 3 to 5 years, but that still is important to know. So you have to look at that, and then you have to look at the roles, just saying, okay, I need a property manager, I need an assistant property manager, or I don't, or I just need an admin. I need a maintenance coordinator because we have so many work orders coming in. I didn't realize that. So separating that, and that doesn't mean that it's not one person still. I just still need the roles separated and the functions. And again, depending on the size of the company, it may be where you have a hybrid role for a short amount of time.
You could be wearing 2 hats.
Yeah, but you split it up in such a way that it's not so much. And, especially if I go into a company and they're like, the owner's like, I want every call answered live. Right? So they're saying, I have to have all the calls answered live. They're not getting answered. I'm getting complaints from owners. I'm getting complaints all the time from tenants. They're posting on Google. There's all these bad reviews. So if that's the case, then how do you have the role structured? So are they not able to answer the call live because they're doing too much now?
Yeah. So kind of diagnosing what the issues are in each role and why maybe certain functions are failing because of the way they currently designed it.
Yeah, I'll even go in and I'm like, I don't want to know, don't tell me about your team. I just want to see the org chart. I want to know the individual's name, what their quote title is, because everybody has a different title, and then what you think their functions are. That's all I'm asking. And then I go in and I do the rest, because what they think that function or that role was is not what the employee is usually doing. Yeah, they're like, well, I had to do this because nobody else was doing it. Okay, it's good to know. So then I'm just kind of marking it all up and then just reorganizing everything, figuring out, okay, this is really what you need. And then let's bring the people back in. I'm also looking for either somebody to take over like today or in the future as like that number 2. Like, you can't do this forever, Mr. Owner. So who is going to fill in to let you do whatever it is you do best?
Okay, so trying to find maybe that integrator personality.
Exactly, because they're the visionary, but they're trying to be the integrator and they're horrible at it. So I'm taking them out of that position, finding somebody who can either fill that slot right now or eventually, as a career path, get to that point.
So when you're building out the org chart, I mean, the way that we're doing it right now, which has been transformative, is we have what winning looks like as like the first line under the title of the role, what winning looks like, and then the procedures that they're responsible for, hyperlinks to those procedures. Okay. And then the KPI for each one. Yep. Would you do something similar or a little bit different? So
I probably would do a little bit different. I think I kind of do 30,000 foot view of the functions of that role. So if you're thinking of an administrative assistant and I want them to do application processing, that's just the function I need them to do. Then I'll dive into the procedures later, but I just need them to, highlight what those pieces are. And then we kind of go in. So maybe a property manager is the person that only speaks to the owner. So what does that look like? Are they also the person that's doing the reconciliation for the owner? Or does that go to an accounting coordinator or somebody in accounting? So I have to kind of figure out at what point do we separate some of these high-level functions and then get into the details later. I think people get too much caught in the weeds and it's really hard for them to see beyond that. So if I take it a step back, they can see the bigger picture and then actually go, okay, I got it.
Yeah, I agree with you that people do get overwhelmed with the weeds. And then that taking a step back is very helpful. So when you have a functional org chart and it works and people know what they're doing, this is what I found, and I wonder if you find the same thing. It calms down any drama in the office because everyone knows what they're responsible for, and so some of those power struggles go away because it's like, this is where your job ends and this is where this person's job begins. Yeah, so the one thing though I will say is that there's still going to be some cross-functional, and I make sure that that's always in play. Because the one thing I hate people telling me is that's not my job. Sure. And so that's the one thing I'm like, don't tell me that, because there may be a situation where you have to fill in. So I can't have you disgruntled about it. Sure. And if you think about the whole life cycle of property management, they all interconnect. And at some point, you may not think it's your job, but it may have to morph into something else. And that's when we revisit it. So it's
I'm very strict to say that job description that you have today, it's a fluid job description.
Sure.
So don't get hung up on, what's in black and white, because there's going to be some areas where we missed it. We just didn't see it because it wasn't ever disclosed. The situation was like a unicorn. It just came up. We're like, COVID.
Yeah.
Perfect. That was a unicorn, right?
Yeah, that was the ultimate.
But that was a perfect example, right? Having to kind of now pivot and be okay to pivot. And now the pivot is, I need you back at the office. And that's another discussion that's also very hard because people are like, I don't want to come back to the office.
Right.
But we're still in a people industry. So there's that conversation that has to be had.
So when those moments come up, that's really where the owner of the company has to draw on the values that they established, right?
Yeah.
Like when there are those moments it doesn't fit into a nice cookie cutter a bento box or anything like that, and they have to ask people to be a little bit more flexible, that's when they should really refer back to their values. I mean, one of the million times, but that's where that kind of comes into play in terms of culture.
Yeah, and I always say you don't want employees that just have a job. I mean, this is a really hard industry. I mean, a lot of industries are. I recognize that, but I don't want somebody who has a job. I want somebody who has a career. I need somebody who's going to, have something in this. And what does that look like? And so I also think it's really important to ask the employee, what do they want out of this? So where do you want to be? I think you heard me talking about this during the conference on a panel, is that you ask them what they want. How much do you want to get paid?
So that's kind of those one-on-one conversations on a regular basis. Do you promote those with your clients?
Yeah, I do. So I believe in doing everything on a quarterly basis. A lot of people work off of an annual basis. And I'm like, that's where so much gets missed. First off, I can't remember what I did last month, let alone last February. So if that's what they're doing, then, employees have like elephant minds, and they're going to remember every good thing they did, conveniently not remember all of the mistakes they did.
Yes.
The owner's going to remember all the mistakes they did and not everything good that the employee did. So there's going to be a disconnect already. So if you touch base every quarter, then there's no hard, I don't know, not
things
hard
don't kind of like pile up, like you don't have that pile up effect.
Yeah, and employees get to be, hold a grudge is probably the best way I can say it. They get disheartened with their employer because they don't feel recognized or appreciated. That's the number one thing. I don't feel appreciated. I'm doing so much. They have no idea what I'm doing. I was never trained. Like, it's all of these things. It's kind of like they have word vomit and they're going through all of this, and they also just want to be heard.
So making changes at a company, changing anything at any organization is a huge business challenge. How do you recommend they do it so they don't burn out or confuse the team?
Don't do everything at once. I think that's the big thing. And look at what is the most vital thing so a lot of times when they come to me and say, this is my problem, I can't stand Sally. I think she's she's doing everything wrong. And I come in and Sally just was never trained, and I can't blame Sally. Like, it wasn't her fault. So I have to look at it and say, well, she's not really the problem. So again, let's fix what the problem is. And is that the most important thing that we address today? And is it a quick fix, or is it going to be something I want to put on a roadmap? So that's the other thing. So a lot of times I'm going to put this in like 3 big phases. And phase 1 is kind of my immediate need. But I may simultaneously work on phase 2 just so that we can kind of, feel like we're moving in a direction that they feel comfortable with. So I'll even go as far as, in addition to everything else I'm doing, I'm doing a competitor analysis. Like, what does their market look like? What does their website look like? What is their message that they're even sending to the owners and tenants? Like, is it welcoming? Whatever that culture is that they want, what is the message that you're also sending out there? So
you said you did people, processes,
and technology.
But that sounds like different. Like one more piece, it's the branding and marketing. Branding,
marketing, yeah, I think that comes into, that could be a technology piece, it could be a process piece, but yeah, the branding, the marketing, the financials, looking at revenue opportunities, that's a big one that I do as well. And I think when people go to conferences, unfortunately, there's this, we get the shiny object and we kind of we get a little ADD, right? We go in there and you're super overwhelmed. You see these trade shows, which I absolutely love because I think it's such a great opportunity. People have found all of these niches in the business and it's really entrepreneurship at its finest. And we go in and we get overwhelmed and then we sign up for stuff. And then we go back and our employees get really mad at us, right? So we've overwhelmed them just by that. So we have to take a step back. And before you sign that, don't
sign a year-long contract right after a conference.
Wait a little bit. It's kind of like when they say, when you write an email because you're mad at somebody, take a 5-minute breather or even longer.
Yes.
Come back in 25 to 20 minutes, reread it, and either you never send it or you completely edit it. And I think that's one piece of it. And then, so when you go to the conference, I know that they have these, it's like going to the fair, right? They have these fair specials.
Yeah,
it's called
for sure.
The conference specials. So you go to a conference special, but usually they'll honor a conference special for maybe a week or so afterwards.
Yeah.
But take that time to really say, is this what I need? Or did I, feel like I had to, it was a fire sale and I had to do it?
So I think since we're at a conference, we might as well just dig into that. Like, let's say I know there's a problem in my business. Mm-hmm. That's why I came to the conference because I'm like looking for support or to fix something. So, and then so much information. So would your recommendation just be in like a quiet place maybe for the Saturday or Sunday after?
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
Organize and prioritize any changes I would want to make first, and then see how that technology fits into a broader plan.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be just the technology piece, right? So I look at conferences, it's like one big therapy session. You're networking, so you're meeting new people if you've never been. You're a little overwhelmed yourself. And you just have to digest everything, and it is a lot of information coming at you. Great little nuggets. Oh my gosh, I'm going to do that. So it's, writing a little bit every day into the notebook or whatever it is you're doing, and then kind of looking back at that, taking the weekend. A lot of people will take a couple extra days. I'm like, stay at why rush back home unless you have to? Come, stay another day and look at everything. Kind of take a moment to walk around, do whatever, and really think, okay, this is what I want to present to my team, and I think this is what we need, and maybe talk to the team about it, because you have to have the buy-in from the team. You can't make all the changes, and you can't make them remotely at a conference. If you do, you will lose your team.
And I think they lose trust in you. Like if you come back from a conference and you're like, we're going to make this massive change that we never talked about before,
Exactly.
Then they lose trust. And so that's kind of why where a consultant might come in, is helping you organize, like that change needs to occur. If it's not really obvious to somebody where to start, or how to progress, or how to outline that roadmap that you talked about.
And again, their number one may not be the number one that needs to be done. So it's helping them implement. So I think that's what's different from really being a consultant versus a coach, because I think a coach is that person from the sideline helping you, encouraging them to just do it. I'm a little bit more controlling, I guess, and I like to come in and help them implement it and say, let me take over, let me help you get it. Because I think a lot of times they're just like, I can't do it. I don't have anybody, I can't do it, I don't know how, so I'm going to take whatever it is.
You're kind of like the integrator if they don't have one.
Exactly.
So so they're the visionary integrator, because small companies, sometimes you can't afford to have like another high-paid person. So you're the visionary, you suck at implementing processes and procedures. You would hire a consultant to kind of like at least start that process until you can hire that person to do it full time.
Yep. Yeah, because they can't wrap their mind around it, and that's okay. I guess knowing is half the battle to even know that you can't do it all. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just hard to know what else is going on in the industry, especially if you're in a small pocket of wherever. Then that's where I can come in and I can say, well, the industry, like this is what I've seen in the industry. Let's see if it will work here. Mm-hmm. And so it might be a little bit of trial and error because we may not know. But that's why I also do that competitive analysis, looking at what's going on in the market. What's your message? What's your brand? What are you trying to come across as? You started something, now let's make it something.
So I think that that's great. And then the other reason why I think someone might want to hire a consultant is I talked to somebody here at the conference and I'm like, how are your processes? And he's like, it's been on my to-do list for 18 months and I still haven't done it. And I'm thinking, well, if you haven't done it in 18 months, and
You're
it's
not
been
gonna
like,
do it now.
you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so if that's a goal, if that's what's going to help you get your business to the next level for you to have the professional success you're looking for, you may want to invest in somebody, hiring somebody to help you with that process.
Yeah. You know what we tell owners when owners don't want to lower the rent to get it rented faster? We're always like, if it stays on the market longer, we all know that they, as property managers, they've lost more money
Right.
trying to just keep it on the market because that day's vacant. It adds up, and it's time and it's money, and we're spending money on marketing. Some may pass that through to the owner, so that's even more added cost. It's the same thing. So invest earlier as a company. It may seem like, I don't have this much money up front, but what would be the savings in the end? Because 18 months of never doing something, heaven forbid that person gets hit by a bus and it's all in their head, and they maybe have somebody that could help them, as they're
And the
recovering.
opportunity cost of not growing during that time. 'Cause
exactly.
you can't grow if you have no processes or procedures written down, or
Yep.
they're really poorly done, or the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. The other thing is that bringing in a consultant, they're going to give you the hard news about your leadership style, right?
Yeah. I love that part, right?
So I think that's such a hard conversation to have, but what are some of the dominant personality types that you see in the industry, and maybe
Putting me on the spot.
some tips that might help somebody at least be a little bit more self-aware?
I think they actually know. I don't think I have to point. I mean, I'll point it out to them, but I think they know. We're all pretty. I mean, we're all adults, and I think for the most part, we know our personality type enough. And either their spouses told them many times. I'm probably telling them something that they've heard somewhere along the line. But I don't want to go in there and I'm not going to mince my words. I mean, you've hired me to tell you how it is, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but I am trying to get past a certain point that's a barrier and a roadblock to what's going on. And it oftentimes can be the leader. So that's when we have to restructure exactly what they do as well and what their best. That's why a lot of times people need that number 2 in there. They need that integrator to come in and help alleviate some of the pain of what they don't like doing. Their brain doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And so, and it makes them grouchy, or it makes them just not like their job anymore, like their people anymore. And that's not a fun boss.
Right, absolutely. So who is your ideal client?
I mean, anybody is probably in need of consulting. I mean, I have everybody from 0 doors to saying, I just want to build a property management company. How do I do it? And then I have clients up to 7,000 doors. I think there's a whole range of what their needs are. So I don't know if there's an ideal client, because I think everybody has so many different facets to their business on what they need. I will say probably the one thing is I do need somebody, if they're going to hire anybody to come help them do their business, be amenable to the change, accept it, and don't spend all the money and just not do anything.
That's heartbreaking to watch, isn't it?
It is kind of. It is actually, because I feel like they're wasting their money. I don't like it, and so I feel like I have ownership into what I'm doing with them. I get to know their team. I like their team. I like them. I want them to be successful. So it breaks my heart when I kind of see them not embrace it. And here's the thing, it's not a one and done thing. So we may be engaged for 3 or 4 months, and then we may come back in 6 months because people slip. It's okay. Summer happened. It got busy.
That's such a good example.
So things will always get off path a little bit. So maybe we just have to reconnect for a few calls, a month, 2 months. Maybe that's when we do phase 2. So we may not be able to get through 1, 2, 3 phases right away. We may have to break it up because, like we said earlier, it's just too much information, too much change, and your team's not ready for it. You may be ready for it, but if I do all of this, you're going to have no one. But sometimes I've gone into places where, unfortunately, I've done this, at least that I can think of, twice in the last year, where I've said, you need to let go of your entire team. I maybe would keep one person. And it's really unfortunate. And I think it's because I have seen the team somehow take over the company. I don't know if that makes sense, but they have almost bullied their boss into doing whatever. Like, I'm not going to do that.
And it's a culture that you can't change at that point once they get used to it.
Yeah, it's a little late at that. Yeah, you're right.
I do just have a quick question about that since you bring it up. I mean, if you're going to have to fire the whole team, do you do it all at once, or do you just pick one person?
No, I try not to, because I understand the impact. It's like, it's a lot of anxiety. A lot of times it will just kind of work out on its own, right? So you let go one person, the team either shapes up or ships out. They kind of get the message. Yes. Then I may have to go down the line. Maybe I'm reorganizing at that point. Maybe I'm like, well, let's see if we can salvage somebody, put them over here. I mean, if I had my way, I would probably say, yes, let's do it all at once. But I also know the impact that could have on a company, and depending on the size, it may not just be feasible. So we may be crippled for a little while, and I tell them that. I'm like, we're getting rid of the worst offender right now, because I have to. And then we may have to get rid of these other people.
But once people see that you're going to hold them accountable, the people who never liked being held accountable and enjoyed their job.
Yeah, they don't like me very much. It's okay.
Then that's when they may just leave on their own, because they're like, "Oh, it's changing."
And you know what? I would rather have them leave on their own, and that's okay. We're no longer a good fit. And I wish you well, and I hope you find a job that really caters to whatever it is that you want out of life. But there's a lot of other people that want jobs and want to work, and we'll find them. We'll find the talent. And I know that talent can be hard to find in some areas.
And that's a big fear. That's why people don't change.
I know, and I get that a lot. I can't find anybody. I've tried looking. Well, let me try. So I'm going to help you interview, and I'm going to tell you what we're looking for. Because remember, at the beginning, they never had a job description. They didn't even have a defined role. So they were just hiring because it was a friend of a friend of a friend, right? So they needed a body. I hate those bodies. I mean, I hate the Band-Aid bodies, like where they bring somebody in just because they have to fix a immediate need, and now they're stuck with that person, and now look at what you've created.
Yes.
So I have to fix that, and I love fixing it. It's just, but it's a jolt. And it's easier for me to let people go or hire people because it's an emotional decision for the owner, who sometimes can't do that. And that's okay.
So if someone's going to hire a consultant, they need to be committed for the long term and be committed to themselves, to making their business and changing themselves for their future self, to have a better life. And then really stick to the program and stick to what they committed to day in, day out, even when it's hard. And that's when you see the transformative effect of what you do.
Yeah. And, unfortunate thing is, I think people hire a consultant saying, I want a miracle and I want this fixed yesterday. And that's not going to happen. And it can be a very slow process, or it can be a fairly not, quick process. Just depends again on what the issue is. But if it's just financials, like revenue, that's kind of easy. We can actually implement those things fairly quickly, but it's never just one thing.
But if it's also culture is the hardest.
Yeah, it is.
And creating just taking the time to create those processes and procedures and develop them well is also a time-consuming process. But waiting doesn't get you any change either. So that's always the alternative.
Doing nothing does nothing.
Well, thank you so much, Deb, for being on the show. And for our book giveaway, we have Fix This Next, Make the Vital Change That Will Level Up Your Business. And it is by Michael Witz. So we'll be giving that to anybody who leaves a comment in either the bio of our Instagram page, Bootstrappers Show, or leaves a message in the description, the link in the description of YouTube. Thanks so much. That's a wrap. We'll see you next week.
This has been Bootstrappers, a unique presentation designed to help you better understand how the world turns. Contact Gwen or Jeremy at hosts@bootstrappers.club or visit our website, Anequim.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. Thank you, and join us next time for Bootstrappers.